And but anyhow, the reason I started talking about it is I'm laying there in our mosquito nets with Mark Morris, and we talked about everything because Vietnam was really cranking.
Sure.
And I was planning, I was on a deferment for graduate school.
Uh-huh.
So I was going to have to go in the infantry after I finished out at Columbia in New York. And Art wasn't sure what he was going to do. And so later on when I'm in New York, studying at graduate school, I get a letter from Art, and he's appearing in front of his draft board.
Uh-huh.
And he's going to put in for his conscientious objector status.
Interesting.
And so based on that conversation, there's no question in my mind that he was a conscientious objector. So I wrote his draft board, and I told him, yeah, this guy, don't send him. He's definitely going down a different route than I am.
Uh-huh.
And so I thought that was kind of cool. I was going off to the infantry school, and he was going to do what he thought was the right course of action, because that was a hard time for people to make those kinds of decisions.
Right, absolutely. And
so that was a big deal, you know.
You could have that conversation in the wilderness and sort of...
Yeah, sort it out.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What did make you join the military? I mean, you're right, it's a pretty volatile time.
I had, of course, I was, Butte Irish. I mean, they always go do something like that. But it was, mom, dad raised us that way, and I thought it was a big thing. But and I got several scholarships. I got a full ride scholarship for ROTC, but I turned it down.
Oh. And
because I had other scholarships, and I didn't need it. Again, it was all about money. But but I did like doing the military thing. I like being around. I like having some challenges like that. But the thing about Vietnam that really bothered me, and I boy, we anguished over that a lot, was it didn't seem right to me. But it didn't seem right sending the people over there. I mean, I didn't want to not be a part of it.
Right.
So I kind of decided that I would just keep putting off, saying I wasn't going to be a part of it until I really, really had to face up to it. And so, as it turned out, after I finished at Columbia at School of International Affairs, I got my degree there, and then bang, I was off to the infantry school and then combat intelligence school. And but instead of sending me to Vietnam, right at the very end of the, you get about the 11.5 month mark, or 12-month mark, you get orders and you're out of there.
Right.
And I was basically cannon fodder like most of the other people that in my status. They kept me where I was. And so I worked with the 82nd Airborne Division and the 3rd Special Forces Group right where I was, doing intelligence reports on places in Africa.
Wow. Why was that?
Well, I don't know. You never know. I have a big philosophy about the random victim selector. And so that's the card I drew. Everybody around me went to Vietnam, and they kept me right there. I knew a lot about... because I'm interested in stuff, I was quite interested in all the insurgencies in Africa and so forth, and I was keeping track of all kinds of weird things. And I had a lot of high security access and that kind of stuff. So I was just real fortunate, and then when my time was up, I was real glad to come home.
Yeah. So how long was that?
I was there 2 years.
2 years.
In the military, in the Army, and then when I came home, I thought I'd never wear a uniform again because I was done. And but after about 15 months, some guys I went to high school with there in Hamilton, they came and asked me to be the local commander. I was a prior service first lieutenant, and so I said, "Can I get out anytime?" And they said, "Yeah." So as long as you sign for the equipment, it's all there. So I joined the Guard, and I was a unit commander in Hamilton, and then over the years, I went from first lieutenant up to a colonel. I was a full bird colonel when I finally got out 28 years later.
Wow.
But that was a good experience.
Yeah. We've talked a little bit about this outside of this interview, but you also sort of mentioned it. You said that some of the same things that attracted you to smoke jumping attracted you to military service. Do you mind expanding on that, or do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah.
And then also some differences too, for sure.
Yeah. I think, the thing you got to remember is that, number one, I've been a Guard officer.
Right.
I mean, over the years, I've gotten about 5 years of active duty too, and I was asked to be a regular Army officer on several occasions, but I just didn't want to do that. I didn't feel that I was suited for the military, really. I've always kind of considered myself a marginal character.
Okay.
And so, I ended up going to the U.S. Army War College, Command and General Staff and all that, and I've heard a lot of the theories, but there's a lot of talk about the civilianization of the military. You know, I mean, computer hackers and hedge fund people actually have a big effect militarily on other organizations, and so it's a range. So I'm not somebody that likes to be in a uniform.
Okay.
But I still am somebody that likes to do a job if it's important and if it's difficult.
Yeah.
I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, so you mentioned the sense of a challenge, maybe the sense of service.
Yeah, when I put in for graduate school, I thought, well, I'll go to graduate school, but only if I can get into the very best ones. And then I'll choose which one I want, because I don't like wasting my time. So that's kind of what motivates me, really.
Yeah, interesting. So you spent 10 years away from the Smokejumpers, and then inexplicably
9 years.
9 years, decided to just join back up. You said you needed
money.
Well,
it was good money, and I had a wife and kids, and see, I was Speaker of the House. I was elected in Hamilton when I got back from the Army.
Okay.
And then for 2 terms in Helena, and then I was elected House Majority Leader for the Democrats, and then after that I was elected House Speaker. And so, but the thing is, you're going there in the winter months, and then you go back to a session every 2 years.
Right.
Then you have all this time in between. You got to find out something to do with your life.
Sure.
And so, it was the best money I could see making. Really, I mean, that and the Guard. I mean, I'd go out and thin trees, or I did a little bit of contract work for different people, but it's just good. It's just good money.
Okay. So when did you get married? Just to step back.
I got married in 1969.
Okay.
To the lady that had the parking ticket.
Oh yeah, so she stuck with you even though she knew that you were a Smokejumper.
Yeah.
Good for her.
We spent that year, that summer of '69, on a lookout back in the Selway Wilderness.
Oh, how cool!
Spot Mountain, yeah. And
I'd love to hear her story sometime.
Yeah, well. Anyhow, it was fun. We tried to have a little agricultural experiment up there at 8,300 feet. That was the carrots are about this big.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, but anyhow, so we got married then, and
in '69. Okay.
Yeah, and then she hit the military post with me and so forth, and and then in '78. Oh, that's something I really want to say something about. The other day, somebody from California said, "Aren't you the one that was the senator?"
Oh.
He says, "I remember you were on the crew detail down here to Reading," and I thought, in '77, and I'd been thinking I jumped in '78.
Oh.
And I thought, man, he's got a good memory. And I checked, and it was '77.
'77, okay.
I jumped in '77. After the legislature was over with, went out, was a smoke jumper. And then as soon as I came back from California from that fire bust down there in Reading, and it was done, then I announced that I was going to run for the U.S. Senate. Okay. And that's why he called me the senator.
Oh, how funny.
But at the time,
what a good memory.
I had to really be careful because people knew, since I was Speaker of the House, they knew that I was thinking of running for the Senate. And so the Hatch Act's really a big deal, and I didn't want to get crossways with that. So it's kind of funny. When I was up in Alaska, it's kind of neat, really. I was with these guys, Walt Curry and... there's a couple of them. I can't remember all their names now. We were going all over on these fires, and this guy from Newsweek showed up. Came out of the smoke behind us, and he'd been trying to track us down on this fire bus because I guess it was newsworthy. And he came up in his bright, shiny new fire shirt, and he wanted to ask all kinds of questions. And everybody that I was with, they all knew that I was going to be running for the Senate because I talked to him about it. And I didn't want to talk to the Newsweek guy. And they were trying. Smoke jumpers don't talk. They talk a lot to each other, but they don't talk a lot. And it was kind of cute. It was kind of neat. They wanted to do something for me in their own way, but they really couldn't know how to do it. And so the Newsweek guy kind of came and went without knowing that he had an honest-to-God Senate candidate right there, which would have been a great newsworthy thing. Right. But you know what? I feel like it was better the way that it was. And then I finished the season, and then filed for office and all that. And I took as my my theme, I called it a working man for a change. And I had a parachute on my button. This is a real collectible. Oh, that's cool. One of the members of the Big Sky Mud Flaps, she made this, Maureen Powell, and so we had a parachute on our thing. And in Butte at a fundraiser, about 6 guys showed up from the jumpers, and Clyde Fredrickson had Old Twin Beach up in Polson, and we jumped for a fundraiser. And that was my last jump. I told God I wasn't going to jump anymore after the last one in California, but this one we did. And then we tried one down in Miles City at the bucking horse sale, but the wind was too bad. But the thing about it is, the people that I worked with were so great, and I really and I felt bad that I came in third. Myself and Judge Hatfield and Bacchus, he won. Were running for Senator Metcalf's seat. He died, and I came in third with 18%, and it was really hard to raise the money. But they did. Both those guys were great candidates. But the thing I liked about it was how the jumpers were with me. They were real supportive, and that was nice.
I like how you take that part of your identity, the jumper identity, and use it in your campaign. Do you think that really resonated with certain groups of people?
I know that, part of it was, the news people were talking, well, how's he going to run for office if he was already in the news, this whole Hatch Act thing, and I was trying to keep that to a dull roar, but I was real proud of it. And Montanans are proud of it. And basically, it's a really good thing. If I'd have been a halfway decent candidate, it would have been a real winner. But it's it's who I was at the time. That's what I was doing. So that's how we worked it out. But anyhow, the way those guys were was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. You mentioned that you had vowed never to jump again. Is there any reason for that?
That last jump in California on that Redding deal, they give you those long letdown ropes, and you say to yourself, okay, there is no... Oh, I had jumped into Siskiyou in that first year, too. I was down there on a fire jumper, too, that had dealt with the big trees once before out of Cave Junction. But this time, I swore again, we came in from Alaska on a load, and they broke us into 2 10-man loads, and we were out and about. And by then I had adopted this theory that if everything looks perfect, if it's perfect, like you're jumping into a golf course, watch out. Something's going to go bad. Maybe it was the malfunction up in Alaska. or the flurry load or whatever. But so I made sure I was way back in the load and watched how everybody else got into this tiny hole in those trees. It was like a golf hole. It was tiny. And so I remember I was jumped out of there, and I'd watched how the wind was with them, and I had to decide whether to make one more turn to lose a little bit more altitude before I started running for that little golf hole in the trees were like, I'm not kidding you, they're 300 feet high. They're big trees. And I remember thinking when I was trying to decide to make that one more turn, because if I made it too low, I'd be in the trees on this side, too high on that side. And I said, God, if you'll get me out of this, I promise I'll never do it again. Only it was a more profound. It gets your attention. I tell you. And when I broke over, I broke over the tree on the near side, and it went right between my legs, and I got over the top, and I looked down. And the other 9 guys were down there, and the first guy, Kerry Shantz from Miles City, he'd busted his femur, and he'd gone for a rock pile, the only clearing in the mesquite there, and it's a lot of brush, it's about 30 or 40 feet deep, way down there, and you could see his leg bend up behind him, look like a little doll. So, and I could see where the other guys had gone for the brush to avoid him, and I thought, oh man, I don't need this. So when I landed in that brush, I was upside down in that mesquite, and I remember Dave Dayton was right next to me, and he was upside down. Everybody's cussing, and you're trying to get out of your stuff, and it's like steel wire. It's like steel. Some of that's really tough stuff, and getting down out of it and getting untangled is a real challenge. And you could hear the fire coming towards you, real close. And Shancy was down below; he was hurt pretty bad.
Oh gosh!
And so people were crawling on our arms and knees, trying to get down there and get him fixed up, and with the first 2 guys, he says to the first 2 guys he got to him, he says, I got a camera in my robe pocket, take a picture for my girlfriend.
Oh my gosh!